The black son of a famous singer was invited to sing at school as a joke, but his voice left the room speechless. The air was thick with anticipation, every snicker a blade aimed at his resolve. "Hey everyone, let's see the diva son embarrass himself." Ethan Carter's shrill laughter echoed through the auditorium as other teenagers looked at each other with malicious smiles. On stage, the spotlights created an island of cruel light where Isaiah Carter, 17, waited alone, facing an audience of pale faces and mocking smiles. Crestwood Academy was the kind of private school where rich teenagers flaunted powerful last names and even bigger egos, a place where students drove luxury cars and competed to see who could throw the next extravagant party. Isaiah was the school's charity project, a black kid from Harlem who had won a full scholarship while his mother, Lillian Carter, a soul music superstar, toured the world. The weight of their expectations pressed against his chest, daring him to crumble. "The microphone is on, Mr. Carter." Principal Henderson smiled with false warmth. "Since you insisted on participating in the talent show, we're all eager to see what you've prepared." Her words dripped with condescension, a silent challenge to fail. The audience snickered. Everyone knew Isaiah had never volunteered. Ethan and his friends had forged his signature on the form as part of an elaborate humiliation. "Let's see if talent runs in the family," they had said in the hallways. Isaiah had never sung in public. In fact, he made a point of hiding any association with his mother's career. Not out of shame, Lillian Carter was a force of nature who had won 5 Grammys, but out of exhaustion, from always being reduced to the son of the famous singer. Since arriving at Crestwood 3 months ago, he had lived in the shadow of that label, even as he killed himself studying to prove his worth. Each day was a battle against their sneers, his silence a shield against their cruelty. It was strange how no one seemed to remember that his mother was black when they asked for selfies or concert tickets. But when they wanted to belittle him, suddenly the color of his skin became the perfect target for jokes disguised as friendly banter. "We're waiting, Isaiah," insisted Principal Henderson, drumming her fingers. "Or are you going to give up?" Her impatience was a trap, urging him to retreat. He could feel the weight of the stares. He could practically touch the expectation of failure that filled the air. At the back of the audience, he saw Ethan and his friends with their cell phones, ready to capture his embarrassment and turn it into the next humiliating viral video. "You don't have anything prepared," Isaiah said, his voice low but firm. "What a shame," the principal replied with a theatrical sigh. "Maybe next time." "I think we can, but I can make something up," he finished. His words hung in the air, a defiant spark in a room primed for his downfall. A sudden silence fell over the auditorium. From her seat in the front row, the music teacher, Mrs. Lopez, looked at him with an unreadable expression. Just a week earlier, she had found him alone in the music room after school, humming softly to himself as he read a history book. He hadn't known she was there until he heard the sound of sheet music falling to the floor. "You don't have to do this," Mrs. Lopez said now quietly. She was the only person at that school who really knew him. Her voice carried a quiet faith, a lifeline in the sea of scorn. Isaiah took a deep breath. There were 2 options: walk off that stage defeated, or show a part of himself he had always kept hidden. He closed his eyes for a moment, feeling something burn in his chest. Not just anger, but a quiet determination. He knew that feeling. "Actually, I'm going to sing something my mom wrote," he announced with a calmness that surprised even himself. But she never recorded it or showed it to anyone. A murmur of surprise rippled through the auditorium. Even the cruelest were intrigued. An unreleased song by Lillian Carter that was worth sharing. What no one at Crestwood Academy knew was that before Lillian became famous, before the Grammys and sold-out concerts, she was just a single mother singing lullabies to her son in a small apartment in Harlem. Isaiah had grown up not only listening to her voice, but learning from it. As he adjusted the microphone, his eyes met Ethan's, who was still smiling mockingly. But there was something in Isaiah's calm, determined gaze that made the bully's smile falter briefly. In that moment, Isaiah felt a surge of defiance, ready to shatter their expectations. If this story of prejudice and public humiliation touched you in any way, be sure to subscribe to the channel to find out what happens when we underestimate someone based solely on prejudice, and how a moment created to destroy can become the catalyst for a turnaround that no one will ever forget. "What are you waiting for, Carter? Maybe you need your mommy to sing for you," Ethan shouted, prompting another wave of laughter. Isaiah closed his eyes. He took a deep breath. When he spoke, his voice was low, almost a whisper into the microphone. "This song is called Invisible Roots." His heart pounded, each beat a rebellion against their mockery. And then he sang. The first note came out shaky but quickly found its footing. It was a soulful ballad with traces of jazz, the kind of song that demanded vocal control and emotional depth. Isaiah's voice, contrary to everyone's expectations, was not only in tune, it was extraordinary, deep, and rich, with a timbre that seemed impossible for someone his age. In the third row, Ethan blinked in confusion. This wasn't in the script. The planned humiliation was turning into something completely different. Isaiah sang about roots growing beneath the concrete, invisible but powerful, about carrying the history of his ancestors in his blood, about staying whole in a world that tries to tear you apart. Every word, every note seemed to strip away layers of a carefully constructed persona. In the front row, Mrs. Lopez watched with teary eyes. She had witnessed something rare in that music room last week. Not just raw talent, but the discipline that only comes with years of dedicated practice. After the sheet music fell to the floor, she asked him why he hid that voice. "Because I don't want to be the kid singing his mom songs," Isaiah had replied, shrugging his shoulders. "And I don't want to be the diversity project who sings. I want to be respected for more than my last name or the color of my skin." Lopez knew exactly what he meant. As a Latina pianist who had left the stage to teach, she knew well the weight of labels and expectation. But to deny your talent is to deny part of who you are, she said then. Now, as Isaiah's voice filled the auditorium, Lopez realized that he had finally understood that lesson. His voice soared, a weapon forged from years of silent resilience. Too late, she noticed Ethan sneaking out the side of the auditorium, whispering with two friends, all of them wearing smirks. The song reached a brief interlude, and Isaiah opened his eyes. Some students had stopped filming. Others looked genuinely impressed. Principal Henderson frowned, clearly recalculating her opinion of the charity project. That's when the sabotage began. The stage lights began to flicker frantically. On the sound system, a high-pitched feedback cut through the air. Someone had broken into the technical booth. Isaiah hesitated, missing a note, but didn't stop. His pulse raced, but he refused to let their treachery win. When the sound returned, a heavy, jarring electronic beat was superimposed over his voice through the PA system. Ethan's friends were clearly trying to turn his performance into a joke again. The audience looked confused at the stage. Some laughed, thinking the interference was part of the performance. Others began to whisper, realizing the sabotage. Principal Henderson stood up to intervene, but before she could do so, something unexpected happened. Isaiah adjusted his voice. Instead of fighting the intrusive electronic beat, he incorporated it, modifying the rhythm of the song and transforming the disturbance into music. Years of watching his mother improvise at rehearsals and concerts had taught him to turn accidents into opportunities. The expressions on Ethan and his friends' faces changed from malicious satisfaction to disappointment. The audience, which seconds earlier had seemed ready to witness a disaster, now watched a true musical tour de force. The students who were still filming began to sway to the music. Some raised their cell phones with the flashlights on, as if at a real concert. The song now had a life of its own, greater than the intention to humiliate that had provoked it. Isaiah's triumph was a slap to their malice, his voice a beacon in their darkness. When the song ended, the silence that followed lasted only 2 seconds before an explosion of applause. It wasn't polite or forced applause. It was genuine, spontaneous, surprised. A boy in the front row, Lucas, heir to a real estate fortune and normally a loyal ally of Ethan's, was the first to stand up in a standing ovation. Others followed. Ethan remained seated, his arms crossed, his face contorted into a bitter expression. His gaze said it all. This isn't over. Backstage, after the applause, Mrs. Lopez found Isaiah trembling slightly, the adrenaline still coursing through his veins. "You knew they would try something like that, didn't you?" she asked quietly. Isaiah nodded. "Ethan had already mentioned preparing a surprise for my performance. That's why I chose that song. My mother wrote it so I could improvise and adapt it depending on the audience. And you knew it so well that you were able to get around the sabotage," Lopez added admiringly. "They completely underestimated you." "They always underestimate me," Isaiah replied with a half smile. His quiet confidence masked the fire of his resolve. "Is that why you decided to perform even though you knew about the trap? To prove a point?" Isaiah hesitated. "Not exactly. Singing was never my plan. But last night, after I found out about the forged application, I got an email." He paused as if deciding whether to continue. "An email from Juilliard in New York, a scholarship program for exceptional talent. My mother sent them a recording of me singing without telling me." Lopez raised her eyebrows in surprise. "That's one of the best music schools in the country, and they want a live performance, an audition next week." Isaiah ran his hand over his face. "Can you believe my own mother never told me she thought I was good enough?" Lopez held his shoulder gently. "Sometimes parents see potential we don't see in ourselves." Her words were a balm, soothing the sting of years spent hiding. The moment was interrupted by a group of students entering the dressing room, all wanting to talk to Isaiah. Between compliments and questions about his mother, few noticed Ethan standing in the doorway, his gaze cold and calculating. He was typing furiously on his cell phone. "Enjoy the moment," Ethan whispered when he finally managed to get past Isaiah. "I've made sure it will be brief." There was something in his voice, a disturbing confidence that made Isaiah feel a chill. Whatever Ethan was planning was worse than flashing lights or interference in the sound system. A knot of dread tightened in Isaiah's gut, sensing a storm brewing. That night, as he returned to his dorm room on campus, Isaiah received a notification. Someone had posted a video of his performance on the school's social media. It wasn't just the video, it was the comments below. The first, from an anonymous account, read, "Find out the truth about Isaiah Carter's talent and why his mother keeps him hidden from the public. Link in the comments." It was just the beginning. The next morning, Isaiah's phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Notifications flooded his screen, messages, comments, shares. The video Ethan had posted wasn't just of the performance. It was a malicious montage that interspersed Isaiah singing with old clips of Lillian Carter, his mother, suggesting that he was just imitating her and had no talent of his own. The caption was, "Devastating, exclusive. Why does diva Lillian Carter hide her son from the stage?" Sources confirmed that he was rejected by every record label for lack of originality. Sad. Fake talent charity project. Isaiah felt his stomach sink. It wasn't the first time they had tried to put him down, but never so publicly and cruelly. The venom in those words cut deep, a calculated blow to his newfound courage. "Ignoring my calls now," his mother's voice echoed when he finally answered. Lillian Carter was many things. An international superstar, an incredibly busy single mother, but she was never one to tolerate injustice. "I just saw that garbage you posted. I'm getting the first flight home." "Mom, no!" Isaiah protested. "That'll just make things worse. Ethan will love to turn this into even more drama." There was a moment of silence on the line. "You're right," Lillian finally said. "That's your story to tell, but let me help you in other ways." In his dorm room, Isaiah stared at the ceiling. Next to him, his roommate Noah, a quiet kid from Boston with whom he barely exchanged words, surprisingly offered his help. "My dad's a defamation lawyer," Noah said without looking up from his laptop, "and I know a little about digital tracking." Isaiah looked at him, puzzled. "Since when do you care?" Noah finally looked up. "Since I heard you sing yesterday, and since I saw what they did afterward. Some lines shouldn't be crossed." Noah's unexpected alliance was a spark of hope in Isaiah's darkening world. In the music room, Mrs. Lopez was also mounting her own offensive. As advisor to the student newspaper, she had privileged access. "Look at this," she said, showing Isaiah a folder of files on her computer. "I've been recording all the student council meetings for the last 3 years for transcription. Guess who's always talking in the files? Ethan's voice discussed openly how he was manipulating the disciplinary committee, grades, even previous cases of bullying against other scholarship students. It was unwitting confession of a systematic pattern. "This is," Isaiah hesitated, "pure gold," Lopez finished. "We just need the right moment." The evidence was a weapon, sharp and ready to dismantle Ethan's reign. The moment came sooner than they expected. Ethan, drunk on the apparent success of his online attack, called a special meeting of the student council, of which he was president, to discuss artistic integrity issues in the talent show. He didn't know that Isaiah had been tipped off by Lucas, the boy who had been the first to stand up and applaud. In the large auditorium, the student council gathered with the school's administration. Ethan looked confident, impeccable in his custom blazer, while Principal Henderson watched him with obvious admiration. "We have evidence that certain participants have used inappropriate technical resources to artificially enhance their performances," Ethan began, casting a calculated glance at Isaiah, sitting silently in the back of the room. His smugness was a challenge, daring Isaiah to fight back. That's when the auditorium doors opened. It wasn't Lillian Carter who entered, as everyone, including Isaiah, had expected. It was a middle-aged black man wearing a simple but elegant suit. Malcolm Hayes, multiple Grammy Award-winning music producer, and Isaiah's godfather. "I hope I'm not interrupting," Hayes said in a voice that was accustomed to commanding recording studios. "I was invited by Mrs. Lopez to discuss possibilities for a partnership with Crestwood's music program." Ethan blinked, confused. This wasn't the confrontation he had expected. "Mr. Hayes," Principal Henderson rose promptly, recognizing the renowned producer. "What an unexpected honor." "The honor is mine," Hayes replied as he walked down the center aisle, "especially after watching this video that's been circulating. I was impressed by this young man's talent. His presence was a thunderclap, shifting the room's power dynamic." The principal looked confused. "Video." Lopez turned on the projector. The screen did not show the defamatory montage of Ethan, but the original unedited video of Isaiah's performance, including the moment when the lights flashed and the electronic beat invaded the performance. "As a producer who has worked with talent for over 20 years, Hayes continued, "I recognized raw talent when I see it, but what impressed me most was this." The image changed. It now showed Ethan and his friends storming the technical booth. Clearly visible tampering with the equipment during Isaiah's performance. "Security cameras," Lopez explained softly to the stunned director. "Installed after last year's vandalism incident." Ethan palled. That's taken out of context. "And so is this," Hayes asked as the screen changed again. Now it showed screenshots of Ethan's messages planning not only the sabotage of the show, but also the smear campaign. "Let's take down the black kid before anyone finds out he's better than us," one of the messages read. The auditorium fell deathly silent. The truth was a guillotine, poised to end Ethan's tyranny. "How did this?" Ethan stammered, searching the principal's face for support. "Your friend Lucas felt he needed to clear his conscience," Isaiah explained. Finally speaking, he handed everything over to Noah and Ms. Lopez last night. Principal Henderson looked like she had aged 10 years in 10 minutes. "Ethan, go to my office now." As Ethan staggered out, defeated, Hayes turned to Isaiah with a smile. "So you never told them, did you?" Isaiah shook his head, a small smile forming. "Told them what?" asked Lopez. Hayes smiled more broadly. "That besides being the godson of a producer, Isaiah recorded an entire album in my studio last year, an album that's scheduled for release next month." Shock and understanding spread across everyone's faces. "It's true," Isaiah confirmed calmly. "I didn't want anyone to know. I wanted to be judged on my own merits, not my mother's name or connections. But now," he glanced at the door through which Ethan had left in disgrace, "now I think it's time for my music to be heard." His quiet resolve was a promise, a vow to claim his place, and so what Ethan had planned as a final humiliation turned into the public revelation of a talent that the whole world would soon know, no longer as Lillian Carter's son, but as Isaiah Carter, an artist in his own right. By the end of that day, 2 videos were circulating on the internet, one of Isaiah's incredible performance and another of Ethan being escorted off campus, his humiliation permanently recorded for millions of viewers. Sometimes the cruelest jokes end up having the most unexpected and just endings. The Crestwood Academy campus looked different that Monday morning. Notices about a special assembly were posted on all the bulletin boards. On the school social media accounts, a formal statement announced changes to the code of conduct and anti-discrimination policies. In less than 72 hours, the scandal involving Ethan had transformed the institution. Isaiah arrived discreetly through the back, avoiding the curious glances and reporters crowding the main entrance. News of his impending album had leaked to the local press, attracting unexpected attention. "How does it feel to be the person who exposed decades of covert institutional racism?" Noah asked as they walked together to their first class. Isaiah adjusted his backpack like someone who just wanted to study in peace, yet inside, he carried the weight of a victory hard won. In the principal's office, a tense meeting was underway. Principal Henderson, now under investigation by the school board for negligence, stared nervously at the members of the disciplinary committee. "The Ethan Hammond case is not an isolated incident," said a newly hired consultant, hired to manage the crisis. "Preliminary analysis of the recordings, provided by Ms. Lopez, reveals a systematic pattern of protecting certain students. Outside Crestwood Academy, Ethan's life was quickly falling apart. His early admission to Yale was revoked. 3 elite universities that had accepted him reconsidered their offers. His father, a prominent executive, faced uncomfortable questions from shareholders about family values and social responsibility. Ethan was last seen leaving his parents' home with 2 suitcases bound for a military school in Nevada. His Instagram account, once filled with photos of yachts and exclusive parties, was deactivated after a flood of negative comments. Meanwhile, Malcolm Hayes' studio was buzzing with activity. Isaiah, sitting in a leather swivel chair, listened to the final mixes of his album Invisible Roots. "I always knew you had something special," Hayes said, adjusting the equalizer. "But what happened at that school? It brought a depth to your performance that wasn't there before." "Life experience," Isaiah replied with a slight smile. His phone vibrated. It was a message from his mother, Lillian, who was finally returning from her world tour. "Proud doesn't begin to describe how I feel. I'll be there tomorrow. I love you." She had watched the original video of Isaiah's performance over 100 times, she confessed later. "I saw you turn their hatred into art," she said, when they finally met. "That's what great artists do." Her words were a crown, affirming his place in her legacy. The following month, Isaiah's return to Crestwood Academy was different. The hallways were no longer filled with muffled laughter or condescending glances. In their place was cautious respect, perhaps even admiration. Lucas, Ethan's former ally, who had provided the crucial evidence, now greeted him in the hallways. Other students, once silent accomplices, sought redemption with gestures of inclusion. Principal Henderson was replaced by Vice Principal Martinez, a progressive educator who immediately launched a privilege and diversity awareness program. Ms. Lopez was promoted to head of the art department. "You know what's ironic?" Isaiah remarked to her during a counseling session. "Ethan wanted to expose me as just the son of the famous singer, but he ended up freeing me from that label forever." His words carried a quiet triumph, a testament to his unshakable spirit. The release of the album Invisible Roots took place on a spring afternoon. No big parties or extravaganzas, just an intimate event at Hayes' studio with the people who really mattered. Lillian Carter was there, watching proudly from a corner as her son gave a short speech. "This album was born out of a need to be seen beyond labels," Isaiah explained to those in attendance. "When we sing, we are not defined by our color, our family, or our past. We are defined by the truth we bring to every note." The reviews were unanimous. Isaiah Carter wasn't just Lillian Carter's son. He was an artist with his own authentic and powerful voice. 3 months after its release, the album received 2 Grammy nominations, including Best New Artist. In an interview with Rolling Stone, when asked about Ethan and the incident at school, Isaiah responded with a serenity that surprised the interviewer. "I don't thank him for the prejudice or the humiliation. No one should have to go through that. But I do thank him for giving me the opportunity to face the fear that was holding me back from being completely who I am." Ethan wanted to show me my place, and ironically, that's exactly what he did. It just wasn't the place he imagined. Crestwood Academy transformed the former talent show into an annual festival of diversity. Officially named Festival Roots in honor of the song Isaiah sang on that fateful day, the event became one of the most prestigious among schools in the region, attracting diverse talent from across the country. At his graduation performance 2 years later, Isaiah Carter returned to the Crestwood Academy stage as a special guest. The irony was not lost on anyone. The same stage that should have been his public humiliation now welcomed him as a legend. Before singing his last song, he shared a reflection. We all face moments when other people try to define who we are and what we are capable of. In those moments, we have a choice to accept their definition or respond with our own truth. And that truth, when finally found, has a power that no prejudice can silence. His words were a clarion call, inspiring all who heard them. If this story of transformation and justice touched your heart, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories that show how sometimes the greatest triumphs are born from the cruelest situations. Share in the comments if you've ever experienced a moment when someone tried to diminish your value and how you responded. Because the most powerful lesson from Isaiah Carter's story isn't that talent eventually beats prejudice. It's that when we know our true worth, no one else has the power to define.